Welcome back to our historical fiction unit. We're just getting started in this unit. So for this lesson, we're going to really discuss how authors use clues to determine the time and place of a piece of historical fiction. Historical fiction really means a story that takes place in a real time, in a real place in American or world history. The things that are not real in the story might be the main character. It could be some of the things that happen to the character, but the backdrop, and if you think of it like a play, the scenery, everything that the main character is involved in is based in a true event, in a real time, in a real place. So, for example, reading the short story A Christmas Memory by Truman Capote. This story took place during the Great Depression in the 1930s. You can see that as you look at how little money they had, and 10 cents was considered a lot of money, and what it took for them to get ready for the holidays. They had to make everything. They didn't have anything. The place, well, it tells you that they had red clay roads, and there was forests and wild hogs and wild turkeys, and they had a farmhouse, but they didn't wear heavy coats. They didn't talk about snow. They took their shoes off to cross the stream. So we know it's got to be a warmer climate. And then one of the other big clues is that the bus driver goes to Mobile, which I know is a big city in Alabama. So A Christmas Memory, historical fiction loosely based on the life of Truman Capote, is a story of growing up during the Great Depression in the South in the state of Alabama. So we're going to be analyzing another story called The Lonesome Valley by Margaret Showers. And as you read that story, I'm going to ask that you do the same thing. Look for clues, and at the end, you're going to need to tell me when the story took place and where it is. So let's take a look at the next slide. Lonesome Valley. They sure named this place right. Deborah complained while she spooned oatmeal into her baby brother's mouth. It's been 2 months since we left the wagon train to find our homestead. We haven't seen anyone except ourselves since we bought flour and lard at the trading post that same day. Mother finished braiding 8-year-old Melissa's hair and turned toward Deborah. We must be thankful that we have each other, she said. Remember Mr. Jones from the train? He was settling even further down the valley, and he's all alone. Deborah shuddered at the thought. She wiped the baby's face and then went to spoon out her own oatmeal. Indeed, she did know that her family was lucky. They had brought lumber with them in an extra wagon. Unlike most of the settlers on the treeless plains of western Kansas, they did not have to live in a mud hut for the first years. Father had built a snug, if very small, cabin. They also had all of the dried meat and vegetables she and Mother had spent months preparing before they left Illinois. Their milk cow and 6 of the 10 chickens they started with had stayed alive on the long, jolting wagon trip across the plains. It still gets lonesome, doesn't it, Melissa? She said. 4 years younger than Deborah, 8-year-old Melissa could be tiresome, but at least she was another young person to talk and sometimes play with. I miss my friend Lydia, but it's fun here too, Melissa said. Today I will take baby Daniel outside for a picnic while you and Mother wash clothes. Maybe we'll find wild berries like we did last week. I love berries and cream. You look like you like cream, Deborah said, smiling down at her chubby sister. Father said Mr. Jones might be coming through here almost any day now, Melissa reminded her. He said he'd go to the trading post one day before winter sets in. The day passed as usual. Deborah and Mother did the family laundry out along the creek bed, using one of the fat white bars of lye soap Grandmother had sent with them from home. In the afternoon, Deborah turned the thin strips of deer meat Father had staked out on the high platform to keep it safe from the wild animals while it dried. This jerk, Deborah knew, would taste wonderful when boiled up in stews during the long winter when the snow was too deep for Father to hunt. Look, Melissa cried late in the day. Someone's coming across the prairie. See the dust flying around what must be a wagon? Do you think it can be Mr. Jones? He would come from the other direction, Deborah said, suddenly feeling excited. It must be someone new. Father said other settlers might arrive before winter. It is very close to winter, Mother said with a frown. How will they ever get a sod hut built in time? It takes weeks to bust the earth for the mud bricks people use. Slowly, very slowly, the wagon drew closer to the homestead, but finally they could see people on the wide wagon seat. "A mother and a father," Melissa said. "See, she has a poke bonnet just like Mother's, and I think she's holding a baby." As they drew closer, Deborah cried, "Look! Behind the wagon, herding their cow. It's a boy and a girl. Melissa, they look just about our ages." At last the wagon pulled across the grass and stopped beside the creek. Deborah and Melissa ran down the slope to meet them. "Hello, hello!" Deborah cried. "The water here is good and safe to drink." Then shyly she smiled at the boy and the girl. She'd been right. The girl looked close to her own age. The boy was just Melissa's size. "I'm Deborah," she said. "This is Melissa." "We're Samantha and Gerald Brown," the girl responded. She looked shy, too, but happy. "I'm so glad to see someone our ages," she said. "Everyone on our train was old, and we haven't seen anyone else since the trading post where we left the trail." "We'll be just a mile down the road," Mr. Brown was telling Deborah's mother. "We had problems with the wagon, so we are very late. It looks like we'll have to dig a cave into a hillside to shelter in this first winter." "My husband's scything prairie grass for the cow and our plow horses to eat this winter," Mother told him. "Off across the prairie there. He'll be home soon for supper. You must stay and eat with us, of course. I'm sure John will want to help you get your family safe before the coming cold." Deborah looked away from her new friends in time to see Mother approaching Mrs. Brown. "Why," she realized, seeing the joy in her mother's face, "she's been just as lonesome as I have. How happy she is to find a new friend." She turned then to her own new friends. "Come along," she said. "We've brought a croquet set with us in the extra wagon. There's plenty of time to have a game before we eat." Then she ran, smiling all the way to the house. Suddenly, Lonesome Valley wasn't nearly so lonesome. Soon, she thought, there would be new families of friends all across the prairie. So now that you've read the story, I want you to go back and look at the text and find examples that help you understand when this story took place and where this story took place. On your worksheet, I'm going to ask you to jot down as many clues as you can, and then at the end, tell me when and where you think the story is actually happening.